Welcome back, everyone. John here. Time for more Disco Elysium. I start this episode with a confession. I actually had to replay this sequence. My first attempt got audio that stuttered frequently for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it was a pain in the ass to try and fix. So I just reloaded and did it all again. Some of the dice rolls land a bit differently, but I do eventually retrace my steps. We get to quite a bit in this episode, mostly wrapping up side quests. We settle the church thing, the doomed commercial area, and make it to what is probably close to the end of the Phasmid quest. Science and new disco glory await us, so let's get to it. I went ahead and slept and jumped through the dream sequence, which referenced the stained glass window of the church. What's odd is that the reptilian brain and the limbic system stated that they're trying to help, that these sleepless nights are some kind of defense mechanism against a particularly bad dream. Morning, Kim. We can surmise that the dream is probably about his ex-wife, and why, even through amnesia, the poor guy just can't move on. But we'll deal with that in time. For now, we start the day with my favorite activity, talking to Kuno de Reuter. God is my witness, we're solving at least one crime today.
Fuck, does Kuno care?
Alright, boyo, the jig is up. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Where are the locusts? You should listen to your friends, son. Lame prison is no joke. You'll go in for a 3 to 5 stretch and they'll make you watch the Golf Channel all day. You will beg for death. But it won't come, Kuno. That would be showing mercy. Right, so he knew locusts are bugs, but he clammed up. Reaction speed said to check his shack, so off we go. Aren't you glad you got up today, Kim? Yeah, right away you can hear the damn thing scurrying around. What'd he do, just turn him loose in here? Perception says that he actually made little dirt mounds with windows. Your guess is as good as mine at this point. See, that's the right attitude. If we can't progress on the case, we make progress on other cases, and somehow, things will work out. That's just smart policing right there. Alright, Kuno, round 2. Now, I don't really want to know what you're even doing with these bugs, but I only get experience if you stop, so let's hear it.
Fuck, does Kuno care?
No weird bugs today. Just one deeply irritating tweaker of a child. I ask him about this weird bug town he's making, and he launches into a rather impassioned explanation of the city of locusts. Now, I would hesitate to call this young man educated, but there is a sincere demonstration of a creative interest here. I mean, it's Kuno, you gotta grade out a curve here. Rhetoric notices he used the first person for a change. Something other than meth is going on in this little man's brain. It appears to be a thing he does when things get tense. You can see that there's a shift in the relationship between these two. I mean, he's still a scrawny little hooligan, but he hasn't really spoken ambitiously before. Watch this next bit. Kuno S is taking him seriously. If he becomes a cop, they become enemies. An awkward silence follows. Suggestion nails it. They're growing apart. He's seeing there's more to life than just getting high all the time and playing in the dirt. Authority senses an opportunity. I don't want to cause more trouble, but we do need him to stop emptying the traps. Fortunately, it's as easy as asking now. He's trying to reassert his friendship with someone he's clearly uncomfortable with. Or maybe it's just not cool now that the adults have weighed in. You'll notice the weather again. The rain started when the text mentioned it. That takes care of that, but he asks about what the traps are for. A peculiar reaction. Rhetoric thinks it's recognition. Improbable though it may seem, he's heard of this thing before. Not that he's willing to tell us, of course. Empathy says he's got other things on his mind right now. Think these two are gonna have it out at some point. Don't want to be anywhere near when that happens. Kuno, you be careful around here, alright? Right, on to the next fun-filled task. Let's check on that freezer. Now, on my first attempt, it wasn't completely thawed, and it took putting an extra point in physical instrument just to get it open. Just changing shirts quick. I did some reading, and apparently unplugging it just gives you the +2 modifier. It doesn't ever seem to completely thaw on its own, which is kind of silly. Anyway, time for my power-up theme. I'm Harry the Hobocop. I'm powered by malted hops. It's just parody, so please don't sue me. I'm Harry the Hobocop. Yeah! Tequila sunset! Oh man, that saves me a point. That's perfect. Aw, no ice cream though. Kim could have gone for a scoop too. That's cute. Next time, partner, we'll break into an active ice cream parlor, just for you. Regardless, we now have ourselves the off-site copy for Fortress Accident. Interfacing reminds us of the radio computer upstairs. There is the filament we put in the computer before. I did check it the first time, the church password does work, but I forgot to redo it. Sorry folks, I'm getting senile in my old age. I'll get back to it next time, it's a funny little moment. But while we're down here, I do remember to try this again. Oh yeah, we got this. Well now.
Hello? Did you say anything? I can't hear you. Please come upstairs. There is an empty curtain on the second floor. I'll open it.
Awfully trusting of her, considering she barely heard us. Well, we got our way through the shutter now. Let's head up. Pardon us, Mr. Evil Ice Bear Fridge. God, that thing is still a nightmare. What dumbass thought that was a good idea? Let's get our light out again. You do not tempt me, computer. Hobocop may be a hacker now, but in this town we respect intellectual property law. Hey, how's it going? Let's put this away. Seen any evil up here? Looks like tabletop dice. What's this about?
Hello, I'm Nia. Did you try knocking on my window? I must have missed you. I've been listening to my Melius. So what kind of die are you looking for?
Inland Empire suspicious again. Not feeling it this time, pal.
Yes, Amelia is like a calling station. You need a two-way radio to access one. That's why I have these. Mostly, they just teach you to swear in different languages. But some of the stations can be quite interesting. I was so absorbed, I must have missed you knocking. Then how did you get inside? By the south entrance? You know what? It doesn't even matter. What matters is that you're finally here. Let's talk dice. Did you have something specific in mind? I'm a novelty dice maker. Tell me the name of your role-playing system and I'll make the die you need. That's why you're here, yes?
Not exactly, no. Curious that neither of us mentioned shouting up the furnace. She's not what I was expecting behind the shutter, I'll admit.
How else can I help you then?
But Suggestion can tell she's got nothing to hide. She's just a nice old lady making custom gaming dice. You wouldn't think there'd be that big a market for it in Martinez, especially considering all the other businesses that failed. Apparently she started out as a jeweler, but that fell through. Some of her friends got into role-playing and asked her to make a set of dice. Not a player herself, but she enjoys the work, and the novelty carries a premium. You know, I thought alcohol was supposed to help you relax. Empire seems really strung out lately. Asking about the murder is kind of academic at this point. That said, Nia is perfectly willing to cooperate, but she has very little to actually say. Her headphones are on while she's working, and we already know there wasn't much to hear in the first place. She's aware of the strike, but empathy says she's in her own little world most of the time. While her window overlooks the courtyard, she rarely actually looks through it. Visual calculus says there'd be very little light out there for her to see, and her vision through the window would be especially poor. Well, enough about that. Let's see what she knows about the building. So she set up shop in the old central furnace of the building, largely because all the actual offices had been taken, and because she can avoid paying rent, which is a nice bonus. I mean, it's a cozy little setup. Precarious, but cozy. For an old dice maker holed up in an abandoned building, she's fairly rational. She's aware of the supposed curse, but doesn't put much stock in it. I mean, really, you don't need the supernatural to explain a bunch of failing businesses in a slum that's fast becoming a war zone. And Nia's a rather standout exception. She's been making novelty dice for 14 years and is still going at it. Plaisance is just being superstitious, probably in part because she was browbeaten into believing that only bad businesses fail. Ah, for fuck's sake. These two are giving me premature gray hair, I can feel it. Thank you, see? Sometimes reality is just boring. That's why we invent role-playing games. Hey, look at us tying themes together. Suggestion says Plaisance isn't gonna like hearing the truth. Fortunately, nobody says we have to tell her the truth. You saw that difficult shivers check there. I'm curious where that leads, but we're just not built for it. I'm gonna make the difficult logical leap that it does not reveal she's some kind of demon witch secretly plaguing the area. I mean, she might be, I could be wrong, but that is where I would put my money. Anyway, she's been here long enough to know about all the other failed businesses. I just ask about a couple, starting with Fortress Accident. She's familiar enough with them to know of their financial troubles, and overheard their conversations as the difficulties piled up. Towards the end, they started blaming the system for the money running out, and she takes the rather libertarian stance that it came down to a lack of discipline and individual work ethic. Granted, this checks out with what we discovered earlier. Their game got wildly ambitious and the money just wasn't there for it, but the data loss also played a factor. She doesn't seem to say anything about that. Of course, I cannot resist asking about the Ice Bear fridge, and she lights up, clearly happy to tell this one. I didn't think of this before, but talking about two guys with innovative ideas about marketing makes me think of Idiot Doom Spiral. I should ask him about this. They hired attractive, but not terribly personable teens to man the counter for about 20 cents an hour. Reminds us a little of the Frit clerk. Nia's not a fan of them. The real problem, of course, was the bear. On top of taxidermying a massive, terrifying predator and stuffing the fridge inside of it, the fridge itself didn't even work that well. Revachol Ice City got beaten out by a competitor using normal-ass fridges. Go figure. And the story's not over, as evidently drugs were involved. The taxidermist said it was his vision beast, an imaginary spiritual guide of a sort. That tells you to do drugs. Of course it does. Now don't you two start up with this. Starting to think I've got a vision beast of my own here. Nothing out of the ordinary, just normal police detective arguing with his tie. Exactly. My necktie isn't talking to me. You'd have to be crazy to think that. Flawless recovery. She doesn't suspect a thing. Anyway, interesting story. Explains what's up with the bear fridge. A lot of other businesses we can ask about, but none of them are terribly relevant right now. We'll pick her brains some other time. Maybe if I get shivers high enough, I'll come back. But for now, we know what we need to know about the Doom commercial area. We just need a way to tell Plaisance that. Back into the dark we go. Next time, radio computer, I will not forget. Your secrets will be mine. Ooh, I am possessed by the spirit of the doomed commercial area. I have come to browse and not buy anything, and leave a 3 stars out of 5 review. She'd probably take that seriously, come to think of it.
What have you found? And also, do buy the books. There may be teachings in them.
Right, about that witch. Sorry to break it to you, but she's just a dice maker. Although I do think Plaisance is the kind of person who'd accuse Dungeons & Dragons of being a conduit to sorcery. Yeah, she really can't let go of this curse thing. We get a lot of input here, and while it's arguable that her false belief needs to be torn down, she's so high-strung that trying to do so might backfire. Inland Empire is the hardest check here, so it's probably the best plan. Something that points away from this building should at least calm her down. Empathy picks up on her relief. While she still thinks there's supernatural forces at work, at least she's not going to start fighting with Nia if she sees her. Fear not, ma'am. I am the best at confronting fake problems to ignore real ones. You know, one day we'll fight a ghost, and Inland Empire will be like, "No man, that's just Old Man Withers in a mask. But there's a real ghost out there somewhere, and it's also a werewolf." Our job here is done. Go talk to Morel about the traps, let him know Kuno won't be a problem, or rather not his problem. Just hope those kids down in the fishing village don't get the same idea, they look kinda bored.
Hello, officer. I think I almost have it. A new trap design, that is. I know you're skeptical, but I have a good feeling about this.
Yeah, sorry man. The great work continues. Volition picks up something with Lena. It's not about Kuno or the traps. She's hiding it well, whatever it is. He starts coughing, and Composure can tell the man has a fever. He's dedicated, but he's been out in the fields too long. Oh, alright. We're headed back there anyway. Easy, pal. We got this. A weirdly wholesome moment from electrochemistry, if misunderstood. He heard co-discovery and went from there, leaving aside what Morel actually said. Well, see you two later. Take it easy with that cough, alright? And now back to the church, with a brief stop at Morel's camp. Hey, I didn't see this guy before. Is that one of the two old guys, the ball players?
Officer, care to play a game with a lonely old man? Actually, never mind. It wouldn't be the same.
That is him. I sort of glossed over these dudes, talked to them once or twice off camera, but Gaston and Rene are two old guys playing a ball game. Pétanque, I think is how it's called. They're sort of friends, but Rene is an old bitter asshole to everybody, about everything. He was a former soldier of the Suzerain, still wearing his old uniform and complaining about the revolution, and he also collected a pension from the Union. That was his guard shack we checked out in episode 5 when we hopped the wall. Everard had sent him home for the strike, but he talked about going to work again in spite of that, and it looks like his heart finally gave out. Poor old bastard. We did talk to him about working again, but Gaston thinks he was just stubborn about it. Though empathy says he's not so sure. The wounds are still fresh. Rene didn't really have any friends, even from the army. It's debatable whether he ever thought of Gaston as one, given he was a notorious fence-sitter during the Revolution. They had a mutual friend-slash-love triangle thing going, and that's kind of what held them together for a while. I love that angry prick, he says. He didn't deserve it, but I did. And of course, Rene's last words to Gaston were a bitter snipe. Wouldn't be him if they weren't. Seems like the man didn't have any loved ones either. Gaston's the only one left who would care about his medals. He's not shy about calling the man a cunt. He's done it like 5 times by now. But it's clear that the losses hit him hard. Like he says, life comes to an end for everybody. But losing someone you've known for that long, it just leaves a void in your life. I did have a question, though. I keep forgetting to bring up the Maybells we found near Clausier. Kim discussed this before, but they're previously known as Insulindian lilies. They became a symbol of the revolution, but were once used by soldiers of the suzerain as well. Inland Empire senses there's some meaning to them. Well, sorry for your loss, old-timer. Take care. The flowers remind me that there's a lot about the shooting we still don't know. A lot of details that may be trivial or irrelevant, but any one of them could point to someone else. As we discussed previously, nobody heard the shot, which means it must have come from somewhere else. The footprints in the secret passage don't match the boots that we know Ruby was wearing, unless she deliberately changed boots, and these flowers suggest there's some other party involved. They could be a gift to Clausier, or a symbol of some kind, but from who, and why? We really have no way to tell right now. And so the hunt continues for Ruby, at present our only named suspect. Also, you may notice I'm occasionally moving without clicking, and that's me figuring out you can actually move with a keyboard, WASD. I don't recall seeing it in the loading screen tips, and it's not exactly precise, given you don't always have a clear room to run in a single direction. Still, it works well enough. You hold down shift to run, and so long as you're not running straight into an obstacle, you do partly adjust to follow the path. It's curious that you'll sometimes see Kim out in front of you, as if he's anticipating your destination. It was near the very start of this video, when we left the whirling. Alright, there's our trap. Let's drop these bugs off and mark this quest done for good. Gee, Kim, you make it sound so exciting and glamorous. Authority can tell he's had just about enough of this. Fortunately, we are basically done. We just need to tell Lena about this next time we're back downtown. Right, finally back to the church. We've got some disco sounds to indulge in. And here, you can kind of see what I'm talking about with the keyboard movement. I think there's some degree of auto adjustment, but you need to navigate around specific obstacles. I don't recall seeing keyboard movement much in isometric RPGs. I think it was in Dragon Age, but after the first game it kind of gave up the bird's eye perspective and became more action and direct movement focused. Suna, got your cube. You ready to do some science?
Yes, what is it?
Here you go, one off-site copy. Sadly, no ice cream to go with it. I know, I was disappointed too, but my heart will go on. Someday. Inland Empire's freaking out again. Young man, if you don't settle down back there, I'm gonna take that speed bottle from Kuno and I'll really give you something to be paranoid about. What we're seeing here is her trying to find the precise location of the anomaly. Previously, they were able to pinpoint the church as the place where the data was lost, but with more precise equipment in the same data set, theoretically at least, she can find its exact position. She's onto something. She knows the answer is in there somewhere. And there we go. She got the exact position of this thing. Nicely done. From her portrait, her actress, and her general demeanor, one gets the impression she isn't genuinely happy very often. It's just the breakthrough she was looking for. Hold that thought, brother. We'll get to that later. We got those spirits for a reason, you know? Aw, how can we possibly say no? Let's take this all the way. Logic's ready for any challenge now. Sadly, this will not be challenging. She just wants us to make small adjustments to the water bowls that she's already marked out. This should let her home in on the anomaly directly. Right, this'll only take a moment. Come on, Kim, let's move water around. This is an important use of our time. You don't even really get the option to screw this up. Everything's been carefully marked out for you. Interfacing is primed to enjoy this. And by contrast, logic is humiliated. I like that that's a difficult check. I just barely passed it. Done and done. Let's see what you can find now.
Yes, what is it?
All done with the moving. What's next? Empathy senses she's hesitating. It's very not like her. spite of being eager to find this thing, she also finds it intimidating. It should be silence. Should be. But she doesn't know what to expect. What does a void sound like? What if it just eats sound around it, but the hole itself is something else? There's no way to tell until we do it. Logic wonders why someone would be frightened of literal nothingness. Because it reminds her of death. You may be starting to draw conclusions about all this. Rest assured this will be spelled out by the end of this episode. In any case, no choice but to proceed. Hold on to your butts. And nothing. Literally quieter than a church mouse. Not a sound out of this hole in the world. Well, look on the bright side. We get to live and experience new failures tomorrow. This has been Daily Affirmations with Harrier Hobocop Dubois. Thanks for listening. She seems pretty certain she'd have heard something, if the coordinates are accurate. The thing eats sound, but there should be something detectable at its precise location, or so she claims. We can try our hand at listening, of course. Inland Empire has a hunch, and this time I'm not so inclined to write it off. Logic's on board, too. Let's see what we've got in the old wardrobe. I remember the cavalry boots help with perception, though sadly nothing else. Instead, I've got another point to spare, so why not?
Yes, what is it?
I did fail with these odds last time. Nah, history repeats itself. Can't hear anything over our own breath. Perception seems to think there's something there, though. We have basically no skill in conceptualization, so no help there. She doesn't want to get her hopes up, understandably. Kim thinks we've wasted enough time here. Suggestion has an idea, though. Maybe the Rave kids can help us with some science. I mean, I've had worse ideas in the last couple days. Less jokingly, they've got stereo equipment. They might know a way to boost the audio. Worth talking to them, at least. Yeah, looking again from the outside, I'm not sure where that hole in the glass is supposed to be. We never see the west side of the building, but presumably the game would tell us if we could just walk right in. Gentlemen, hello again.
Hi again. So, how are things going?
Swimmingly, sort of. You seem like three reasonably intelligent fellows. Maybe you've got some input on bizarre spatial anomalies. And surprisingly, they do. Don't be a downer, Perception. If Noid says this thing's got pickup, it's worth a try. And back to the church again. Diplomacy is hard on the feet, man. I'll admit, Suna doesn't seem like the type to tolerate these guys even if they can help, but it does seem like they've got the equipment for the job. Why not squeeze a little science into the party? You think people at CERN don't get down off hours? Alright, let's take one more whack at this.
Yes, what is it?
And lo, our conversation helps us hear better, somehow. Hooray! So, what exactly are we noticing now? We managed to pick up something. A pressure change in the recording. Perception likens it to flying on an aircraft, or sudden changes in the weather. The phenomenon affects the atmosphere, which means it is real, and, like Noid was suggesting, a better sound system might be able to detect it. Where indeed. I think our mutual solution has just presented itself. How about it, Suna? You put up with them, they put up with you. We liven up the joint, make some fucking science happen, eh? Aw, thank you, Suggestion. Couldn't have done it without you. Yeah, let's go break some good news for a change. Been so much ado about police business and an increasingly complex murder case that it actually feels good to accomplish something. We're resolving a dispute, getting some idealistic, albeit speed-producing kids indoors, helping a programmer prove a theory. I'm not entirely fond of the Shivers check seemingly being required at the Feld building, but I do like the quests that feed into it. They're all good combinations of world building, character development, and practical rewards depending on how thorough you are. Good news, everyone!
Hi again. So, how things going?
Andre, my man, how'd you like to get off the ice and do your thing somewhere with a roof? It's an odd situation, but I figure if Suna can put up with Diego, then these guys won't be too much more of a hassle. And sorry, Andre, no drug lab. Parts of my brain sympathize, but I'm in enough hot water with the station, thank you very much. Two hours later, 15 minutes have passed. Looks like they've finished moving, and they didn't leave anything behind, so let's mosey. Last bit of backtracking for the night, I promise. Just dance music and science, baby. Looks like they're settling in nicely. Let's see how they're doing.
Yeah, it's all set up, man. Can you already imagine 1,000 people in here? 10,000! Ecstatic vibrations, totally transcendent. And I've finished setting up the new compressor too. Now the only thing left to do is the name of the club. Will you do the honours, detective?
Oh, sweet, I get to name the club. Let's get some input. Andre's more management than imagination, sadly. Noid seems to agree that we've earned the right. Now I'm getting all misty here. How about you, Ussel? Any thoughts? She keeps it simple. Probably a little too simple, really. Oh, we gotta hear Egghead's thoughts on this. And he goes with Yeko Kata. Ussel explains it as the site of an ecological catastrophe. Probably not the vibe we're going with, brother. What's your take, Noid? Give me something special. The amnesia? Let's avoid self-fulfilling prophecies, shall we? Suna, how about your 2 cents? She's new to being cool. Give her time. Kim, hit me with something. Oh, fine. Lieutenant Buzzkill doesn't want to have fun. Hey now, I bet Diego would come up with something. But sadly, we cannot ask him. It is time to choose. Oh, how can I pick anything else? This is how we leave our mark. Hey now, disco might be dead, but Staying Alive is one of the best goddamn songs ever made. That shit is eternal. I think we got a winner, folks. Hell yeah. Welcome to Disco Elysium. What are you doing, Andre? Andre, what are you doing? Okay, this alleged dancing calls for an intervention. Just watching this is making me whiter. Sadly, this composure check is far out of our reach for now. Physical Instrument thinks we might be able to pump up the jam, though. Instead, for now, we ask about his hair, and Perception notes that the punk hairdo may be an attempt to cover up a bald spot. Seems our kid is a little older than he appears. I'm starting to see why Hobocop is getting along with these guys. And you know what? As someone who's 15 going on 38, I can relate to that. Ussel, how you settling in? Still got that recorder? Atta girl.
Hey there. I've been recording some new audio from all these beams and rafters. The sound's travelling through the wood and creaks and stuff. Like you're underwater, you know? But like underwater inside a tree.
So far, everything seems to be going well. The guys are basically all set up, Egghead's putting his energy to good use. Their new roommates are mostly keeping to themselves, which is fine. They don't need to be friends, they just need to play nice for a while. Can finally ask her about the others. Suna stays focused on her work, but every now and then little hints of joy about her old job slip through. I think she misses Fortress Accident. As for the infamous Crab Man, Diego tends to stick to the rafters, but he has been getting along with Noid, which is surprising. We saw during the naming scene, Noid kinda stuck up for him. Then there's Andre, their esteemed leader. Perception notes she seems to have relaxed a bit, either taken another hit or recovered from the last one. Either way, she's in a better mood, and talks about his talents as an organizer. I mean, credit where it's due, he got everybody here with a bunch of supplies on basically a whim. Maybe not the brightest bulb in the box, of course. She hints that this might be some kind of, oh shit, I'm getting older crisis, that he thinks the club is some kind of last chance to really do something with his life. Kim being sarcastic is just perfect. These two deserve a buddy cop movie. She's definitely in a better mood. Inland Empire notes we haven't heard her laugh before. Ah, and Andre's her boyfriend. You know what? Yeah, I can see that. Then we switch topics to Noid, and seems like he's got a similar background to Cell and Andre, a Falberg native who made what she calls a pilgrimage up north to the Elysium. Must be the place for the dance music scene. We know he's a carpenter by trade. Apparently he just didn't fancy working in a shop somewhere. Inland Empire picks up something else about her. The way she said, I abide by the law. Something in the way she talks suggests there's more to her under the surface. But back on topic, the pilgrimage sounds like some kind of street festival. Poor kids from Falberg hike the length of Boogie Street all the way up to Jamrock in the spring. That's our neck of the woods, so we might have once known this, even if we don't know now. Maybe we'll get back there someday. And then there's Egghead. Predictably, he's the one they know the least about. She launches into a story about partying in Falberg, or Coal City. Encyclopedia says it lives down to the name, a dying sub-district around some closed-down mines. That one Shivers thought bubble downtown described it as the end of all lines. Anyway, they were out partying, ended up in Coal City, and Egghead just kinda tagged along, shouting himself hoarse. He wound up following the group on a 2-day walk home, and the rest is history. Also, his real name is Germain, which is just adorable. Sounds like a hell of a night. Shame we weren't there. Naturally, his tendency to just shout whatever's on his mind made him a good fit to be on mic. Anodic music doesn't really do lyrics, so Egg fills the void by shouting about how awesome everything is. This feels like a departure from early electronic music. It's my understanding that even the more experimental stuff like Einstürzende Neubauten usually had lyrics. And actually, we're going to end this tangent because Kim's butting in with a keen observation that he is immediately embarrassed by. He's not even wrong, dancing is socially contagious. You're more likely to do it if you see other people doing it. But call me crazy, I think he's starting to warm up to all this. We ask about her last of all, and she calls herself a silver bird. Reaction Speed recognizes the phrase, but doesn't know what it means. For now, it just means she doesn't answer questions about herself, and it seems there's not much we can do to get her to do so. There is a reaction speed check, but I've got nothing that can help, and we've got no modifiers. We'll have to come back to that. What's going on with you, Noid?
You got us in, Cop. I can't believe you got us in. Between you and me, I don't know if you've noticed this about me. I'm a little suspicious of authority, but you really came through for the hardcore underground.
Yes, you really came through for the hardcore underground. How come?
Why indeed. This started as tracking the suspect and turned into a pet project. Like with Andre, maybe it's just a midlife crisis thing. But what the hell? The kids took a chance on something, that's worthy of respect. EDC says Kim suspects a deeper reason behind this, but he's fine with it so long as it keeps us clean. Anyhow, Noid, being a carpenter himself, has a lot of thoughts about the church and its history. With a little prodding, he says he doesn't really consider himself a tradesman anymore. He values the knowledge, but you read between the lines a bit and it seems like he didn't gel with the collective aspects of skilled labor. He says the churches were some of the first things built by early settlers, like they were scared of something. Inland Empire thinks it was something more than nature. Remember, they weren't crossing the ocean, they were crossing the Pale, essentially a sea of nothingness. They had no idea what to expect. Despite being a carpenter turned hardcore scene inhabitant, Noid knows his Doloran architecture. He points out that the picture in the glass is a demonstration of the power vertical, the innocents on top, the queen below, the rest of us further down. Lots of arches and spires. Sounds gothic, but painted white. Virtue and tyranny, he says. Noid's talked about signs and the feel of a place before. We actually cleared the quest to sync our signs by getting them in. He goes on about the spiritual collapse of this place, and uses a rather morbid comparison about pigs to illustrate. It's a quote, but he's talking about how the church, the structure we're in, was left to rot because the parishioners lost faith in the capital C church, which means rule by the innocents. Rhetoric points out the disgust in the word false. I get the impression that to him, the church isn't just real estate. It's a chance to prove that Anodic dance music can actually build a better culture, or at least one small part of it. With the help of drugs, of course. Yeah, we're kinda getting lost in the weeds here. Let's move on. Although Empathy thinks he wanted to just jump in. I think Fun Kim is trying to get out, and he just needs a little motivation. As for her innocence herself, Noid has some unsurprising opinions of her, like making the hole a lot larger for starters. The others are just kinda going along at this point. Half-Light thinks she's more than just a buzzkill. Everything that reminds Harry of his ex is distorted somehow, alluring and threatening at the same time. His thoughts can't fully be trusted here. Even leaving this topic is tersely delivered, caustic. Volition won't let us go so easily. Why do we keep staring? We just don't know, but it's begging us to stop. On a hopefully lighter topic, Noid talks about his conversations with Tiago, what he learned from the guy, and finds they have a fair bit in common. Granted, Tiego's mildly disturbed and gone straight edge, but he knows a lot about the church, and not just physically speaking. I think these two are fairly high in Inland Empire themselves. Pay attention to this part. The guys describe it as a sarcophagus, and they don't mean mausoleum, but more in the Chernobyl sense. Encasement, confinement to something they were afraid of. He makes it sound like the church was built specifically to contain something, almost certainly the anomaly. You'll recall they built several of these things not long after they landed. They probably didn't understand what they were dealing with, and he thinks Suna is destined to fail too. We then get to bring up the Doom commercial area, and this leads to a theory of recurring failures in this area, possibly due to this very anomaly. It's a bit chemtrails-y, to be honest. As far as we know, this thing just interferes with sound and data transmissions. It does, however, beg the question of how contained it really is. Noid has a lot to talk about. He seems to be the most educated of the group. That has, however, come with paranoia as his default state of being. He stops just short of saying that everything is after his vital bodily fluids, but it feels in that vein. An Inland Empire has found a kindred spirit, which is just a little bit concerning. I ask him a few questions, but it fast becomes a rabbit hole with no apparent bottom to it, so I don't exhaust his dialogue tree just yet. I'll probably do that off camera and make a note of anything especially interesting. Yeah, he's on to pig-wheat hybrids now. Like with Inland Empire, we're looking at maybe 10% keen observation wrapped in 90% conspiracy word salad. His clothes are just part of the aesthetic, and he asks about our tie in return. See, there's that 10% being astute, like we're trying to hang ourselves with it. Empathy thinks he's being patient with us partly because of our style. He's a strange guy, but I think we've got an understanding.
Delorian Church! The place to be! Make some noise, my church people!
Egghead's up there doing his thing. Physical instrument is feeling the change in acoustics. He definitely looks more at home now that he's properly set up. I assume all this shouting is his way of saying thanks. Don't see any new options, though. And lastly, Suna. How's she holding up with this?
Yes, what is it?
So, how goes the project? This is groundbreaking stuff, you know. Most science doesn't get an MC. She's feeling a little less than honored right now. Deafened, more like. But mostly she just needs Egghead to plug a jack in, and seems to have trouble getting through to him. Jazz hands. Rest easy, citizen. I have learned the ways of the youth. Egg, my boy. Got a job for you, pal.
Good morning! Yeah! Hardcore!
Yes, harder core to you too. But you know what would be really hardcore? Computers and science. There's a brief scare about the plug size, but our man is covered and hooks up an adapter. Alright, I think we're about ready to do this. Oh, I think we'll manage for a bit without the song that's been on loop for the past 20 minutes.
Yes, what is it?
We're all set, Suna. She tries to get him to turn the volume down, just in case we start picking up something serious. Egg insists on going full blast, and it takes an interfacing check to realize that the volume is literally stuck on maximum, with glue for some reason. You can just feel the sense of, what the hell have I agreed to, from Suna. Oh well. In the immortal words of 2 Unlimited, y'all ready for this? Kim's a little nervous. That's the spirit, just shoot the hole if it turns nasty. We're having a little bit of anxiety ourselves, but hell if we're turning back now. Let's do this. The music dies. Perception hears nothing. An unnatural nothing. But something is coming through. A low hum, building up inside us, around us, until the very air starts vibrating. It will devour everything. The floorboards, the glass, the streets, and the people. Nothing will remain. Whatever we're hearing is vibrating on a frequency strong enough to shake the whole building. And it's getting louder. Egghead's yelling about hardcore again. But Empathy sees something darker, a consuming wave coming towards him. Destruction and salvation. The window's breaking. This thing's gonna bring the whole church down on us. Beams and pillars are starting to crack. Egghead's gone insane, like it's some kind of revelation. Meanwhile, the bass just gets stronger. It's rattling the very foundation of the building, the very core of our being. God damn it. There goes my character. Sure, why not sing some Whitney Houston? And Egghead joins in. Fuck it, the apocalypse is happening. Why not? Suna can't stop the signal. Estelle's turned the mic up, but it just gets louder. It's in the walls and the floors and our very bones. Nobody can stop it. It's building up in the mixing desk. Pull it! Egghead! Pull it now before the whole world comes to a... Stop. That, he says, was getting a little too hardcore. Place seems to still be standing. Yeah, tell me you were fucking recording that, Suna. She's dumbfounded. This is what caused the data loss, what ultimately doomed her company. And Andre just thinks he can use the noise for their music. I mean, the man's on a mission, what can I say? Of course, she recorded it, and she now has a lot of people to get a hold of. She says the sound was a raw data stream from the anomaly itself, converted to a waveform. Theoretically, at least. Realistically, this is far out of her wheelhouse. This is some next level weird happening. The next step is getting a hold of her team. She wants them to know it wasn't her fault. Or theirs. And after that... thinks she's found a new calling. She wants to know more about this thing, even work with the speed freaks to do it. and Andre's more than happy to have her. It's a curt thank you, but Volition says it's a lot for her. They did help, after all. Now, with that done, we should be getting back to our business, rather than risk destroying more abandoned property. But she is looking for a theory, and we may just have one. Suffice to say, it's something we've been doing a lot of thinking about. Son of a whore! Not snake eyes, but damn close. I knew that was coming eventually. Yeah, I passed this on the first try last time. Guess that point I didn't spend in physical instrument is going into logic. Brain meats, your advancement is required.
Yes, what is it?
Okay, if I botch this, I'm blaming the anomaly. There we go. You saw the bonuses from Motorway South, and may have considered what else this thing resembles. Harry talked about this while drinking with a friend a lifetime ago. This hole in the world is the Pale, the formation of a tiny patch of unreality, right here in the church. She doesn't want to believe it, and why would she? The known edge of the Pale is thousands of kilometers away. But the Pale isn't an ocean, it's a phenomenon, the transition point at which reality stops existing. We found it early, and perhaps so too did the settlers, centuries ago. Rather than steadily encroach, perhaps it erupts, appearing beyond its known boundaries when certain conditions are met. It's theorized that the Pale is a degraded state of information and history. That's why it's eating data and sound, and why measuring it overwhelmed us. Kim's more than surprised we'd know any of this. So am I, really. Harry's a thinker sometimes. There's that word again, sarcophagus. Diego wasn't just rambling. The church was built to contain it somehow. Which brings up the bad news of the other 6 churches like this, the ones that were torn down or destroyed. They might not all have been containment facilities, but some of them might. Gameplay-wise, we're starting to see the long-term consequences of earlier decisions. Like Kim says, for Hobocop, this is a pretty in-depth conversation on a specific field of study. And suddenly all those apocalyptic statements you can make don't seem quite so crazy. But as she says, all this is just a layman's theory, albeit a logical one. We need to get some proper scientists involved. And yet, suddenly having a dance club to keep the church intact isn't quite such a bad idea. I mean, it's kind of nuts. But hey, so far, kind of nuts is working out for us. Yeah, see, Egghead gets it. This Scooby-Doo gang might have just caught this thing in time to do something about it. We're coming up on the end of the video. I just asked about this electric anomaly in the DCA's doorbell first. Suna describes it as entropinetic crosstalk, an interinsulary form of radio interference. Kim says it shows up on police radio from time to time. With a point of Pale in the neighborhood, that starts to make a lot more sense. It's literally carrying the decayed remnants of memory. Thanks, Suna. And hey, nice job. Not bad for a programmer, 2 cops, and a team of speed freaks, eh? So yeah, today's been a wild fucking ride. We did get a thought from that, cleaning out the rooms, and I decided to invest in that. The description makes it sound like Harry's starting to organize his thoughts better and move on, at least a little bit, from the pain in his life. But that wraps us up for tonight. We're pretty much done here, so next time we should finally pass that failed building check, track down Ruby, and get this investigation rolling again. Until then, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.